Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. Before I get into my great guest today, I want to talk about some of the things I have going on. I have a relatively new website, www.markpattisonnfl.com. It's got a lot of great stuff out there. I'm out keynote speaking quite a bit. I just did a TEDx and I've come out with my new book, Alan, right there, Finding Your Summit. Ironically, it's got the same name as the podcast. The thing I'm most proud about this, how to build resilience and faith to rise above life's challenges. Ellen, you've had a few of those as FI. So it's not just about the shiny things, it's also about the things that we have to crawl out of. So this will be almost and close to number podcast 300. That's a lot of podcasts. I've had this man on before. He's a superstar, and his name is Alan Arnette. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for
Great.
having me on again. Appreciate it.
Yes, so I just want to set this up for the audience really quickly. So I originally had you on a number of years ago because you are accomplished in your own right in terms of mountaineering around the world. I think you were on Everest maybe four times. Before your fourth time, you finally made it, and you went through. You had some things get in your way. I know one of the things that from kind of day one has been kind of your motivating factor has been this kind of fight for Alzheimer's. I think your mother suffered through that. Ironically, since we originally talked, I'm now dealing with that with my own mother.
Oh,
Yeah, so it is what it is, and we're trying to manage that the best we can. But it's cruel, it's awful. But let's just talk about that really quickly about just your Everest experience and why you have become a leading authority on coaching and helping and mentoring others as they want to go off and try to take on these big, gigantic peaks around the world.
so again, thanks for having me back on, Mark. You just plugged your book. I just finished up a memoir that I wrote, and I'm shopping agents right now, trying to figure out, go through the publishing gauntlet.
Yeah.
And but it's the intersection of my purpose and passion, and my passion is mountain climbing, and my purpose is being an Alzheimer's advocate. And so the book kind of goes through mainly talking about my K2 climb, and then also my mother's Alzheimer's journey. But why Everest? In the beginning, when I first did it, I attempted it in 2002 and 2003. And, I was not real clear on my purpose back then. And when I had this summit coach consulting business. And the first thing I spend probably half an hour with every new client is I ask them why. Because this as an NFL player that at times, marathoners are the best example. Mile 23, you hit the wall.
Mhm.
And when you hit the wall climbing a mountain, and I don't know if you experienced this on Everest or not, but I certainly did my first three times. I mean, I came up to what I call my big favorite rock right below the balcony, where
Yeah,
you make that right hand turn to go up
yeah,
to the balcony.
yeah.
And that's where I hit the wall all three times in 2002, three, and eight. And I found all the reasons to stop, not the reasons to keep going. And then when I finally did make it in 2011, I was focusing on honoring my mom and raising money for Alzheimer's. And that gave me energy and purpose that I had never had before. And I think that's really critical is finding your why in life.
Mhm.
I don't care what you're doing. I don't, if you want to have the best lawn in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
if you want to do the best job of raising your kids, if you want your dog to be the best behaved, you want to learn French, whatever it is, find your why, find your meaning in your life. And I know there's always, there's lots of books out there, self-help books about, a purpose-driven life and things like that. But I'm coming at it from a different angle. And my why for climbing Everest in the beginning, Mark, I committed the biggest sin that as climbers that we can commit, and that was the sin of arrogance. I overestimated my capability and I underestimated just how hard it is to perform at altitude.
Yeah.
And that arrogance, it humbled me. The mountain became my teacher, and I came home a better version of myself as a result of going through that process, that suffering. And so I've been on now 38 major expeditions in my life, and every single expedition has taught me something. So mountain climbing became my passion because it taught me so much, and it provided something to me that I was not getting anywhere else in my life. I always looked at my life as I do look at my life as an equilateral triangle of all three legs of my family, my work, and myself. And what I found early in my life was that it was basically a flat triangle.
Yeah.
It was
About
all
yourself. Yeah.
no, 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 no. It was all
Oh,
work,
oh,
all work.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
And then I got married, and then it was my work and my family,
Yeah.
but it was never anything about me. And it wasn't until I was 38 years old that I finally figured out that I needed to work and have something for me.
Yeah.
And so mountain climbing became that fulfillment for me. And as a result, it taught me things. And I think I became a better person as a result.
Yeah, I know I have. And my wife certainly going up that south slope and up to the balcony, my daughter with epilepsy, certainly driving, that whole mission for me to keep going and just 10 more steps, 10 more steps, keep going to the rock,
Exactly.
keep going to the ice block, 10 more steps and so on and so forth. So I can certainly identify. Let's really quickly, I just want to touch on K2 just for a quick second, and then we're going to get like the update on what's happening here
Sure.
with the Everest season. I'm going to put this podcast out next week. So today we are recording on the 20th of May. So like within the next 5 days, I'm going to have this out. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's happened by them. So we'll do a little predictive analyzing here based on what's happening real time right now. And by the way, back to your point about underestimating or maybe overconfident about your abilities. There's somebody who I'm not going to name, and he's a really good guy, and he's a superstar in everything he possibly does. And he's one of these guys that was gonna like shortchange the amount of time that you got to be there to acclimate by being in these tents, and then just do it once and go up and come down and like the Kumba. And I just said, hey, dude, I care for you, and just don't underestimate and expect the unexpected. I'm just telling you it's coming. And you just like, you can't even begin to imagine what you're going to be up against. And he's like, yeah, yeah, whatever. I think he's dealing with that right now based on
Yeah.
some posts I've seen. But okay, K2, I think it might be the most deadly mountain in the world. Maybe 1 out of 4 people don't make it back because it's so steep and there's rock and there's ice and that big ass rack that you have to go under to get there. How like in the scale, because I want to compare this and I want to go back and talk about the stuff that we just like let's talk about Everest. Go there right now, 2026. Um, Everest compared to K2. Give me some parallels because you've done both.
So Everest is all about altitude. That's really the big thing. If you take the normal route, of course, if you take the West Ridge or Kanshan Face, I mean, it's horribly technical and very difficult. But by the north route and the south route, it's not that difficult from a climbing perspective, technical climbing, but it's the altitude, it's the duration, it's the exhaustion of being on an expedition. That's what gets people.
Mhm.
And your point about the person that says, "Oh, I'm going to go up and just alpine it," that's very, very rare. I mean, again, the mountain has a way of humbling you
Yeah.
in a way that hurts. K2, it's in a different category. It's steep. It's dangerous. The weather is more unpredictable because it's the first large peak that the westerly winds hit. So the winds come over and it comes down. It's like a Venturi effect coming down the east side of the mountain. Um, Avalanches, crevasses, rock falls prevalent last year. The mountain basically shut people down except for one Nepali team, which really, I think, pushed the envelope to the absolute edge, and a person died on that effort from rockfall because rockfall was very prevalent last year. I found it to be the most difficult mountain I've ever climbed in my 38. It was also, Mark, it was also the most fun. I mean, going up the Black Pyramid, doing mid fifth class rock climbing from 22 to 24,000 feet, using your hands, using your feet, actual climbing,
Yeah.
not walking. You're physically climbing. The views are just outstanding. The trek in, I love the Khumbu trek, but going along the Baltero Glacier, again, another new category. It's just an outstanding, outstanding experience. The Pakistani people were very friendly and opening and caring. The porters were fantastic. I've been there twice. I tried Broad Peak in 2006 or seven, something like that. Got about halfway up and couldn't make it. But standing on the summit of K2, um, that was a that was a moment. I mean, that that's my summit certificate right there, and my summit photo
Yeah.
with Kami Sherpa, same Sherpa Kami. We summited Everest together. But yeah, K2 is a different category.
Yeah.
You have it is a climber's mountain. Um, period.
Yeah. I do relate really quickly, and then we'll jump into Everest. Climbing after I got off Everest, I started going into doing the rock. I did the Matterhorn, the Eiger,
I,
the Grand Teton. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's just straight up and
yeah.
scary and just kind of a little bit different skill set, so I can appreciate that. Okay, well, let's jump into 2026 season, and well, let me tee this up just a little bit because going into this, there was a bunch of stuff that was happening, record permits, roughly from different nationalities, not counting the support crew, which are the Sherpas and the Nepalese climbers that are up there that help assist people up and down the mountain and really lay down the fixed lines and things like that. 500 permits, and then you had this gigantic Serac that was ready to break at any time, and so that delayed people from doing the rotations. So to me, it was all leading up to like this summit fever thing that is happening as we speak right now. So there's already been a few deaths up there, some accidents that happened in the Khumbu. Um, what do you see happening? I know there's some summits that are happening as we speak right now. This is kind of the window when everybody seems to be running up there. What's going on?
Yeah, so this has been a really unique season. Probably 2019 is parallels it when there was only 3 days that were suitable to summit. And when we talk about a weather window on Everest, we're talking about winds on the summit winds that are under 30 miles an hour consistently. And in 2019, there were only 3 days, and that's when that one picture that went viral of this long line of people from the
Yeah.
South Summit to the summit were just standing in place because they couldn't move because of the line. But this year, like you say, it started off with the icefall doctors being really hesitant to attack that serac. And what it wasn't actually the hanging serac. That's normally what you're afraid of that's to the climber's left as you're going up the Khumbu Icefall. Up on the west shoulder of Everest, these hanging seracs, they constantly cave or whatever the word to be. And so they slip off and they fall into the icefall and they kill people. And that's what happened in 2014, that there were 16 Sherpas that were killed as a result of falling ice. This year, there was a giant serac, and it was roughly 200 feet high, 100 feet wide, and it was like a giant refrigerator,
Yeah.
and it was just sitting in the ice fall near the top, and it was teetering. It was teetering to the right towards Nuptse, and the icefall doctors were scared to death that they were going to fall on top of them as soon as they walked underneath it.
Yeah.
And so they waited and waited and waited, and it kept moving and moving slightly. Eventually, it did collapse, left a huge debris field. Anyway, so at that point, then a team actually from Imagine Nepal, not the icefall doctors, went through and established. They found a route to go up to Camp One, and they took ropes in, and the icefall doctors picked up their work and carried it on to Camp Two, and then the rest of the rope fixing team they did an incredible job of getting the ropes to the summit on May 13th, and that opened up the route. However, this jet stream, the high winds aloft, 150, 200 miles an hour that Everest pokes into, was just sitting parked on top of the summit. And so that then delayed anybody from doing anything for another roughly week. So then on the 17th, finally, a team did go through, and actually, on the 13th, sorry, on 13th, when the ropes went in, there were six climbers, three from China, two from Norway, one from Norway, and two from Sweden. They followed the rope team. They became the first commercial clients to Summit. But then the jet stream moved in, so everything stopped. And then now it's picked back up. Today, 270 people on this morning of May 20th, 270 people summited. Think about that in one day. When I summited, it was 270 in the season. This was one day, and I'm getting reports, live reports from the mountain that the lines were just horrendous. Now the winds had calmed down. I'm seeing videos that were showing still gusty, swirling winds. So it's not going to be reported, but I promise you that there's going to be massive frostbite
Yeah.
because of the winds. Because wind chill is close to minus 50 Fahrenheit
Yeah.
or centigrade. At that level, the two grades cross. So
Let me set this
it's a
up.
mess.
Let me set this up, and you've done this, as have I. So I'm talking. You and I are going to talk to the audience, people listening, with intrigue about the line. When you go over so now you're headed towards the summit. You're coming out of Camp 4. You're going up to the balcony, hanging a left-hand turn, going up the south slope, and now you kind of crest over the top of the Hillary Step, and now you're more or less staring at. You can see the top. You can see where you're finally going, right? But the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that it's not like, a lot of summits where it's kind of this wide open glacier thing where you
Yeah.
can just, horizontally you can go up. You're talking about 2 feet maybe, and 8,000 feet straight down, it is to Tibet. To your left as you're going up to the summit, and the other way is 8,000 feet down to Nepal. And so it's by the time somebody gets up there, now they're going to want to take the picture and congratulate and hug, and that's something. That's because now they've done their thing, right? So if you can multiply that by the 250 people, climbers that you're talking about, and been standing there, you can't really move because you can't
Right. It's
advance
a one-way
by.
road.
It's a
Yeah.
one-way road until somebody comes back down. It's kind of like when there's like going back to your road analogy, it's when there's a road shut down, and so they have the two flag guys, and one on one side it's stop, and the other one is slow, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. And you really can't do anything about it because you can't go anywhere. So you're kind of screwed. And like you said, I'm just really fearing again when this podcast goes live in a few days. I'm really fearing what's going to be on the backside of this, of the result of this summit fever of what's going on today.
You know, here's the dirty secret though, is that no one talks about it. The operators, the guides will not talk about the
Yeah,
people that got frostbite. They're going to talk about how they had 100% success
that's
rates,
right.
which is nonsense. If you have a team of one and you summit, that's 100%. But if you start off with 30 and you have 20 that summit, that's not 100%. But guides will misrepresent what they're doing out there. They won't talk about the injuries. They won't talk about the frostbite. They won't talk about the rescues because it's bad publicity. And that's the problem. And social media has just amplified that because everybody wants, like you said earlier, they want to get their selfie on the summit. This is a dangerous sport. People die. There's only my condolences to the only families of three
Yeah,
people who died this year. But so far, it's been a low death rate. We'll
yeah,
see what happens over the next, 5 days. Because in my count, we had, you just said it earlier, 500 permits. It's about 1.5 Sherpas to support. So that's 750 Sherpas. So that's 1,250 people. About a 30% attrition rate. Different people drop out for different reasons. They get sick, they get homesick, they got a problem back home, they got to go home. Anyway, so I'm thinking there's like 800 people. And thus far, we've had roughly 400 summit. So that's still at least 400. Now I'm talking about clients or members plus support climber Sherpas. So we still have 400 to go over the next 4 or 5 days. So we're not out of the woods yet. But your point about being in that line, the real problem with that is that you're using up your supplemental oxygen
yeah.
and you're standing there, and if you're well prepared and you know what you're doing, you turn that flow down to like maybe half a liter a minute. That's fine. You can stand at 7,500 feet at half a liter a minute if you don't move. But if you turn it off, all bets are off.
Yeah,
So that's the big thing.
yeah, and then I think another thing that people don't know or don't hear about too is that when you're talking about, okay, so the reason why you have oxygen on your back is you're dealing with a third less O's when you
Right,
get above the death
right.
zone. That's number one. So you have this stuff to compensate that as you're going up, as you're breathing, and it's like climbing with a bag on your head. The other thing, and this is a big thing as much as anything, is that when you get those O's flowing and they're going down your mouth, you can feel it's almost like it inflates you in a way. I'm saying kind of metaphorically, but sort of it feels like it inflates you up a little bit and gives you a zap of energy, but it also heats your system
Yeah.
in a weird way. And so when you shut all that off, then you're just, like so exposed to
Yeah.
what's happening, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
well, gosh,
Yeah. Oxygen, what also a lot of people misrepresent is that supplemental oxygen is not like going down to sea level. It only makes about a 3,000 foot difference, about 1,000 meters. So if you're at 27,000 feet, your body still feels like it's at 24.
mm,
And to your point, really the big benefit is it keeps your body warm. So it keeps mainly your extremities warm by having that extra oxygen coming into your body. So your heart and lungs don't have to work quite as hard. I'm talking,
yeah.
we're talking a single digit percentage of working hard, but that's really the big benefit of the supplemental oxygen. And only 97% of the 14,000 summits have been done using supplemental oxygen. So it is rare to not use it. We had this Polish climber who does Bartek, who just he summited Lhotse and skied down. He
Yeah.
did it Everest and skied down yesterday, and he did it both without any Sherpa support, with no O's. I mean, this guy's a beast. 31
Yeah.
years old. He's a
Yeah.
beast. He's
Well, you know this because we're probably roughly the same age. Age does make a difference.
oh yeah,
I
huge.
climbed it at 59 and I felt it compared to, we had a couple guys on there that were in the early 30s and,
They were just goats.
they're just goes. They just go. I was actually supposed to do Lhotse too, and I would have died doing that. I was just out of gas and out of everything. So, let's talk about that skier for a minute because I did see some video of him coming down off that mountain, and I can't imagine. I mean, there's certain spots where I can see where you could ski, and there's other parts, coming down through the Western Coombe and coming down off that Lhotse face, which is just straight down and it's all ice. I can't imagine how you'd come off that without one fall and you're all the way to the bottom.
Do you remember that movie? This goes back into I think it was the 80s. It was called The Man Who Skied Down Everest. Mashiro Chino. He's a Japanese man,
Okay.
Japanese Jim. I actually ran into him in the ice fall, and I said, he was sitting there. He had a bunch of Sherpas with him. It was just him. He was going to try to be like the 80-year-old Japanese man to summit something that's in that spirit of it. So I went over to him. I said, "Excuse me, sir, konnichiwa," and I said, "Are you the man that skied down Everest?" He goes, "No, no, no. I'm the man who fell down Everest." Because to your point about the Lhotse face, he had a parachute that was attached to him to slow him down, and he was going down on skis, and all of a sudden he just lost it. It became a yard sale and just tumbled down.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I also asked him. I said, I said, "What's your secret of being able to do this at your your such respected age?" And he kind of looked around, like he held this little packet up. He goes, "Honey." That was his secret weapon.
whatever you need, whatever you need. I know there was another young Nepalese Sherpa that wasn't clipped in. He wasn't paying attention who fell down the Lhotse face.
Yeah, that happens occasionally. That's, as you well know, always stay clipped in. That's the number one rule, safety rule.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Bartik, the Polish skier, I mean, what he did was just amazing. And I honestly don't understand how he skied down the Khumbu Icefall. I think they go over on the Noopsy side, so they're not taking the standard route.
Yeah.
And when I know I saw an interview where he talked about also having to ski over rocks. So I mean, I'm crashed his skis, I'm sure.
Yeah, I did see a video where he was scraping, it wasn't like a big exposed rock, but it was a rock that was exposed to certain that you could certainly see that if the rock had some ice on it, that you could scrape, like, you know, tear your skis up, of course, but
Exactly.
you could actually it wouldn't block you from, making that happen. So,
You know
yeah,
what though, Mark? What's interesting about this is that people like to diss Everest and a lot of mountains for saying, "Oh, well, it's a tourist." Now, you're not a climber; you're a tourist.
yeah.
What he has shown is that there's still opportunity for innovation and adventure in these big mountains, even the heavily commercialized ones. That who would have thought that you would ski down both Lhotse and Everest without oxygen, without Sherpa support in the same week? I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Well, I think it's a pretty big deal if you can make it to the top of Everest. And you did it, and I did it, and I don't care who you are, and you will never tell me or sell me on you're just
I'm with
quoting
you.
somebody else, that it's a tourist thing. I mean, it strips you down to the very element of whoever you are, and that's the way it is. And you're exposed in every single way. And I like had all 10 toes on the edge. Took you 4 times to get up there. And you finally did, and you finally made it. But it just like
Thanks
rips
for
you
pointing that
apart.
out.
Yeah, well, but it's just, I mean, I'm trying to talk about of like how
Yeah.
challenging, and I was supposed to go do Lhotse, and even though I did Everest, and I felt like a failure for a period of time that I didn't do Lhotse
Yeah.
because that was part of my stated goal, and I'd been fairly public about it.
Yeah.
And then it just like I knew I was going to die, and it was really humbling thing for me to swallow and admit that, but because I thought it was like, superhuman. And it's just like you said this now a couple times. It's just like it reduces you to like people underestimate that mountain and what it can do to you. And Mother Nature, what it did to me, I was snowblind in the eyes. My left side of my face was wiped out. Really hadn't eaten in a couple days, and it just it really makes you reset. And I pray to God that there's typically coming out of there, you can tell me you know better, but 8 to 12 people normally die per year, and we're at 3 right now. So it seemed like if odds hold true, like, and I don't want this to happen, of course, nor do
Of
you.
course. Right.
But there's going to be some casualties coming out of this long line thing. The last question I'm going to ask you is that I've got a buddy, you may know him, Tom French, and Tom had followed me the year after I summited in 2021. He summited in 2022, but he had a really unique strategy. He went with it was only one or two other guys in his small group. Um, but they did a moonlight. They went on a full moon, and they climbed throughout the night. So they didn't wait till start at midnight. They started at 6 p.m. or something, and they landed on top of the mountain at 2 or 3 o'clock a.m. So they were literally coming down. There's nobody up there. They're the only people up there. And I'm surprised that more people don't want to go up there. Although I get why it's for the picture of being in the daylight, being able to see
Sure.
throughout the Himalaya, which is, amazing when you're looking at that. But, certainly when you're talking about a jammed and a packed, and I'd rather take a moonlight climb than be in this long line and risk my life like that.
Yeah, I summited at 5:30 a.m. just as the sun was coming up. Actually, there was one of my teammates. He was from the Dominican Republic, and he had a Sherpa that was filming him. And just by chance, he captured me sitting on the summit on my satellite phone, making a call back to my website. But then he pans over, and there's the shadow of the mountain off to the west as the sun was coming up. I mean, talk about a magical moment. So I kind of feel bad for people that summit in the dark because they don't get to see that view
Yeah.
that we saw because it is magnificent. Frankly, I think the K2 view was better, but still it's still the Everest view looking all throughout the Himalaya. And you know how big Amanda Blom looks as you're going in?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you can barely even pick it out
I
when you're on
know.
the summit of Everest, but
Yeah.
you can see Makalu and Lhotse and all the others. So.
Yeah, no, impressive. Okay, the last thing I do want to do is plug you, and you do alanarnette.com, and you do have a coaching business. So people who want to get out there, and like a lot of times it's just like, where do you start? And you don't know. And you are a great, not just a good, but a great, phenomenal resource. Um, Tell people when they reach out to you, like what they can expect, how you can help them ensure their success, to at least put them in a position of success to climb a mountain.
I appreciate this, Mark. Yeah, it's called Summit Coach. Summitcoach.org is the website. I just updated the website. I'm really proud of it. Basically, what I do is I take somebody who has zero experience and just want to get into mountaineering. I had a young man, Ryan Mitchell, that has gone viral. He came to me in 2022. He was a YouTube sensation, and he was 18 years old. And he said, "I want to create a YouTube channel about mountaineering. So I want to go climb Mount Everest." I said, "Great. When do you want to do it?" He goes, "I want to do it this spring." I said, "Like 4 months?" "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I said, "What kind of experience do you have?" "None."
The
So,
perfect client.
I said, "All right. So here's the deal, Ryan. That there are companies that will take your money, and you may summit, you may not. You may live, you may not. But I'm not going to have anything to do with it."
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, what's it going to take?" I said, "Well, hire me as your coach. It's going to be affordable. I promise you that. But there's four things that you need to be able to summit Everest. You need to have time, money, health, and experience.
Yeah.
You've got time, you've got money, you've got health, but you don't have the experience. So I
Right.
put together a strategic climbing plan for him with a series of mountains that he had to climb before he went to Everest. I matched him up with the best guide that met his skills, his experience, his desire. That happened to be Garrett Madison. There's a
Yep.
handful of really world-class guides out there. There are ones that I would avoid. There are ones that I would send, my daughter with.
Yeah.
But we go through and we prepare holistically. So it's not only the physical climbing. There are great physical climbing coaches out there like Uphill Athlete and Evoke Endurance and others. They will take care of you physically. I can take care of you physically, but what I also do is prepare you mentally and emotionally. And so that prepare you that you know exactly camp by camp what you're going to expect. What's the right gear to have? Everybody has a gear list. My gear list is this mother of all spreadsheets that's been curated over my 30 years of climbing. So we work on gear, we work on guides, we work on physical training, we work on emotional training, mental toughness, so that when you hit that wall, you know exactly what's happening. So you're not shocked and you don't make the wrong decision. So Summit Coach is a total package. And I really prefer to do longer term relationships with people, not just one climb, but to find out what really the joy of mountaineering is and to help them go through that journey.
Love it, love it, love it. And by the way, I think you know this, that I was with Gary Madison in 2021. I've climbed with him in Sun Valley. He stayed with me several times. So, good guy, good human being, always looking out what's best for the climbers. So I can certainly back you up on that one. Okay, well, listen, Alan, thank you so much for coming on. Let's hope and pray that the end result when this comes out that it's still the numbers are down in terms of people losing their fingers or toes,
Yep.
other things like that are perishing and everybody can, get back healthy and safe and all those.
Let me summarize and amplify a point you made earlier that how proud you are that you summited Everest and that you reject the label of being a mountain tourist. I agree with you. I think that anybody who attempts this mountain, I think you have to earn the summit. You don't pay for the summit. You have
Yeah.
to earn the summit through going through the gauntlet of other climbs to get there. But once you do it, I don't care if you summit or not, it'll change your life for the better.
Yeah. It's amazing. All right. There is everybody, the one, the only Alan Arnette. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.